So the formation lap very shortly to come to a close for those towards the head of the order as they make their way down through Brundle and Nelson to try and get the best of the tyre temperature that they need for a good run down towards the first corner. In terms of tyres this time round, well, the only three we have on hard tyres are the top three. Everyone has gone for the soft tyre for this second race of the weekend. In terms of the championship now, after the first race we had earlier, Ash Sutton still heads the way, 107 points to his name, with 3 points now back Tom Ingram after finishing ahead of him in race number 1 earlier today. Jake Hill, after that poor performance and not being classified, now sits on 80, just like he was after race number 3 at Brands Hatch. And then Dan Camish, after that victory, leapfrogs into 4th position on 73 points. So he is the big gainer and picks up his first victory of the 2025 season. So he finds himself there again on pole position. We also have the boost to bear in mind this time round, so it's going to be 1 lap of boost for Dan Camish. 2 laps then go the way of what's going to be the man in second place on the grid, which is Tom Ingram. Then we have 3 laps of boost for that of the third place man, which is going to be Ash Sutton. And then behind that, 4th place is going to be Dan Rowbottom, so he'll have 4 laps of the boost to use. 5 laps for Dan Lloyd in 5th position, and then further back from that we have 6 laps for the 6th place car of Adam Morgan, 7 laps for Tom Chilton in 7th place, and then those 8th on backwards get 8 laps of deployment to use for the boost. So they are the interesting facts you need to know, but we saw a really interesting race at Brands Hatch for race number 2. It really did have a disparity between the tyres that came to the fore, between the soft and the hard. Not so much at Donington Park with the soft and the mediums, but as we said, it was kind of 8 tenths or so at Brands Hatch. We've already seen so far today it's been somewhere in the region of 1.6 seconds per lap, where those on soft tyres are better than the hard tyred cars. So watch for the start, because the hard tyres will be slow away. Watch out for those quick pedallers from lower down with the soft tyres that they are all using, apart from the top 3. You'll be able to, of course, denote what driver is on what tyre with the rectangle on the side of the car. Red is hard, white is soft. And in terms of the boost, when it goes green and flashes, that's when they're on it. When it goes white, they've run out for that lap. And when the whole box goes red, they've run out of boost completely for the race. They are the 3 colours you need to look out for on the side of the car above the driver's name. We're all set to go then for 12 laps of racing for what's going to be round 8 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. Is Camish and Ingram on the front row of the grid. The red lights are about to come on, and we are going to go into action once again as the drivers head up towards Richie's corner. Great start from Ash Sutton, just like he did in race number 1. He came from 6th up to 3rd, but there's no way through on Tom Ingram or that of Dan Camish on the run down towards the first corner. So after a good start, he's going to have to settle by the looks of it for second place. He runs side by side with Tingram. He gets a good run on his teammate Dan Camish. He's already ahead as he works his way down towards the Wilson hairpin. Ash Sutton leads the way. The 4-time champion is ahead of Dan Camish, and Tom Ingram does not want to hang about. He wants to go with Sutton. He doesn't want to be held up by Dan Camish, and he knows there's going to be some quick pedallers from behind, all of them on soft tyres, as Dan Lloyd now goes side by side with Robo in towards Palmer Corner. But with that mistake, he's now going to be attacked by Adam Morgan on the run down towards Agostini for the first time, and Tom Chilton in the other Team Virtue Hyundai is going to try and get into the mix, and fingers crossed this time we will make it safely through the first couple of corners, which we do. But it's Ash Sutton, Josh, that leads the way.
Yeah, mega start, wasn't it? And then mega through Ritchie's. He's really got the hang of that this weekend. Dan Camish is already losing out. Dan Rowbottom, the first driver on soft tyres, is through into 3rd position. Round the outside comes Adam Morgan now, and Dan Camish, after having such a great opening race, he's really getting roughed up here, but he's managed to hold off Adam Morgan. That's going to bring Dan Lloyd a chance, and this is all good news really for Dan Rowbottom, because he's getting away from the other drivers on soft tyres. But we mustn't forget, still ahead of him, Ash Sutton and Tom Ingram.
Yeah, indeed, and I think that the hard tyre runners know that they need to get away quickly, because they are going to be hounded later on in this race by the soft tyre runners. There's a bollard that goes flying there from Dan Camish, so he's already starting to fall down the order, so he cannot hang on to these hard tyres as it stands. Bit of cement dust being kicked up, which has been laid down from an earlier race through the bomb hole, so nothing to worry about there as Dan Camish continues to get pushed wide, this time by the car of what's going to be Dan Lloyd by the looks of it. He goes down the inside in towards the left-hander at Murray's. might be actually. Chris Smiley's out wide, goes one of the BMWs. That should be Darryl de Leon. He was the one that was highest up the grid as this race got underway. So yeah,
I think Jake went a bit wide as well then.
He's done good though. He's got up probably 3 or 4 or 5 places since where he started. So Jake Hill comes through. He's in 16th position, so 5 places gained on the first lap for last year's champion.
Inside the car, he did have a look as if he had a job in hand, yeah.
Good stuff. So Jake Hill making progress. Right, Camish is still losing out. This time it could be to his other teammate Sam Osborne. So already at the end of that first lap, Camish is in 8th place, and Osborne has made good progress as well, Josh, up into 9th place now.
Yeah, he's gained 4 positions, didn't he, on that opening lap, and he's about to get past his teammate Dan Camish. You've got Mikey Doble in there as well. He's trying to come through, but there's no way up the inside of at least Sam Osborne. There is a way through ahead of Dan Camish. So Camish, very shortly, he's going to be outside the top 10. It's been a pretty horrible opening lap and a half, hasn't it, for the race 1 winner, Dan Camish. Through the left-hander at Hamilton, down towards Oggies they go, but it's still Sutton up front. But Tom Ingram in second, now starting to be caught by Dan Rowbottom and Dan Lloyd. They're the top 2 on the soft tyres, the 2 Dans, Rowbottom and Lloyd. Yeah,
Dan Camish not agreeing with these hard tyres whatsoever, so he is the one definitely struggling at the minute. But as you said, here come the soft tyre runners now, getting those into the window they need, and almost a move there from Robo as he heads off the Bentley straight for the second time of asking, now starting to put immense amount of pressure onto the back of Tingram as they head their way down towards the bomb hole. Is this going to be easy pickings for Dan Rowbottom, who many tipped for race victory this time round? He looks for the inside line. It's a very, very tight gap there, and Tom Ingram just about got it closed at the very last minute. So Ingram holds on to second, but I think it's a matter of time before Dan Rowbottom does get his way through. He can't hang around, can he though, Josh? Because Dan Lloyd, as you said, is right there on his tail as well.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go the wrong way, does he? Because that could give Dan Lloyd the opportunity, and I'm sure as much as Dan Rowbottom would love to win a race, that's absolutely true for Dan Lloyd as well. What about his teammate Chris Smiley? He's just set the fastest lap of the race, so they're all catching the top 2. A big moment for Tom Ingram. He's completely sideways through Ritchie's, and he slaps the barriers on the inside. Not too much damage, or has it done the damage, mate? I think it might have broken a toe link, and that is disaster for Tom Ingram possibly.
Certainly is, yep. There is damage to the right rear there. That's turned in. Whether he can manage this through the race, I don't think so. But look at that moment. Almost saved it, but then there was an Armco barrier which was just there where he didn't want it. If he'd have hit it probably 20 metres later, he may just have avoided the one that sticks right out. So Tom Ingram, as you said, very sideways through turn number 1, and I don't think he's going to be able to hang on.
I was quite amazed. I was going to say how he was managing to hang on those tyres for such a long time. He was driving absolutely on a knife edge, wasn't he?
Certainly was. He's a skillful driver, to be fair, so he might be able to deal with this crabbing as well. So we'll see what he does at the end of the lap. But Tom Ingram with that heavy impact with the Armco barrier, so he is now outside the top 6.
I think he's pit lane due.
And Sutton was really sideways, Matt, going into Williams, so this might be Dan Rowbottom's chance heading down the Bentley straight.
Here we go. Then we've got a line of BMWs all together as well. De Leon, Rainford and Hill all joined together. But is Sutton going to make it easy for Dan Rowbottom? I think he is. So Rowbottom goes through and takes over the lead in round 8 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. And now is Sutton going to try and play rear gunner to make sure that he tries to keep that of Dan Lloyd at bay. That might be the wise thing to do for the team. But again, soft versus hard in terms of tyres. It might not be that easy for Ash Sutton to try and achieve this task in hand. But Dan Lloyd has been absolutely phenomenal so far this weekend. And as Alan said, I think Tom Ingram could very much be pit lane bound on this lap.
How about Ash Sutton now, knowing that his main championship rival at this point of the season, he's probably not going to score any points. Is it just to see where you can finish out of this? And he's not defending at this stage, is he? Dan Lloyd goes through without too much difficulty. So Lloyd up into second. You've got the 2 Team Virtue teammates of Adam Morgan and Tom Chilton up next. Then it's Chris Smiley. Then there's a gap. So is Sutton going to defend this that hard, or is he going to drop back to 6th, I wonder, Matt, and then see how many points he can score?
Yeah, I just don't think he's got the tyre, has he, to defend. So both of the Team Virtue Hyundais go through. Adam Morgan first, Tom Chilton next up. Tom already a race winner so far this year, so again looking to try and creep himself onto the podium as the second restart racing machine of Chris Smiley now goes past Ash Sutton, and as Alan predicted, into the pit lane Tom Ingram with that damage on the right rear. So that is possibly, as Josh suggested, a toe link gone on that car.
Yep, I've had that confirmed as well, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah, so just like we saw from Jake Hill in race number 1, they did get it fixed and get back out there, and as long as they can get it back out and make sure it's all good before race number 3, I think that will be the task in hand for Team Virtue. But as suggested, Ash Sutton is now to the back of the 6 we have out front, so he is now going to be the man on the rear of the tail, and then the next train of cars, the trio, led by that of Sam Osborne, who still is having a great race. 7th place for him, Mikey Doble is 8th, and Josh Cook is on the tail in 9th.
So we have a battle, don't we, for the race win in round 8 of the 2025 Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. You've got Dan Rowbottom leading a train of 5 cars on soft tyres with Ash Sutton, Dan Lloyd, Adam Morgan and Tom Chilton all in that lead battle. So can Dan Rowbottom hang on to make it a Napa Racing victory here at Snetterton? Well, he's going to have his work cut out with 8 laps to go at the end of this. And Dan Lloyd, who was out of the championship last season, he can see a victory is possible today, Matt.
Certainly could, yep. So on the charge he goes now, on the back of Dan Rowbottom. And as we said, Restart Racing have really shown some form so far this weekend. They were unlucky, as we heard from Chris Smiley, in qualifying. But yeah, I think things have massively turned around for today as the 2 Team Virtue Hyundais go together in towards Richie's corner. It's Adam Morgan just trying to hang on now ahead of Tom Chilton. They can't fight too much because the other Hyundai from a different team of Restart Racing, Chris Smiley, is right there as well. So both of them now inside the top 5. Smiley ahead of Sutton at the end of the previous lap, but Dan Lloyd is definitely the one putting the pressure on the back of Dan Rowbottom for the time being. So he gets himself onto the short straight down towards Agostini, has a brief look to the inside, but he cannot find his way through for the time being. But Dan Rowbottom, the more mistakes he makes, the more the door will be open, and Dan Lloyd is now going to go for it. It's a drag race down towards Hamilton. They've got the boost to use if they wish. I think Rowbottom might have been on it because he had a better acceleration down towards the left-hander. So Lloyd for now has to wait his turn.
And just behind them, Chris Smiley is trying to get himself past Tom Chilton, and that must have allowed Adam Morgan to escape. So Adam Morgan going after the top 2, but Dan Rowbottom's under all sorts of pressure from Dan Lloyd here. Rowbottom, who has had 2 previous wins in the championship, Lloyd, who has had 4 previous victories in the championship, and they are looking for another today at Snetterton, and a first of the season it would be for these 2 drivers up front, but it's still Rowbottom ahead. He's been able to hold off that challenge. Lloyd, I thought, was going to get alongside on that approach to Hamilton, but as you mentioned, Rowbottom just about had the acceleration to stay ahead. But it feels to me, Matt, that Dan Lloyd is quicker at this part of the race.
Certainly is, and he has got one more lap of boost as well. We'll see how that sits at the end of this lap, see if Rowbottom did use it on this occasion. But for now, I think Dan Lloyd, in the back of his mind, he's not really under pressure from Adam Morgan behind, so he can kind of take these risks and try and make moves on Rowbottom, knowing that he's not going to be under pressure from the cars behind. So he'll try again as they head up towards the first corner at Ritchie's, and both of them actually did use a boost lap at that time through. So 2 now left for Dan Rowbottom, 3 left for Dan Lloyd, but it's Adam Morgan in 3rd place who has the most, with 5 laps still remaining. So plenty still to be used for those cars behind, but Dan Lloyd at the end of that lap just 4 tenths back from the race leader.
The news from pit lane, you know, we saw those problems being resolved in the first race when we thought it was the same thing, the toe link plates that were being repaired down in pit lane for Tom Ingram's car. Not the case, because the car has been rolled back into the garage.
So more significant damage effectively then for Tom Ingram, with a very heavy hit into that Armco. So that has definitely put pay to Tom Ingram's second race. But it all depends on what happens to Ash Sutton, because of course the further he falls back, the more beneficial that will be for Tom Ingram in the championship. And that could well happen, Josh, because we know that Ash Sutton's on hard tyres and everybody else around him at the minute is on softs.
Yeah, and they're catching well over a second a lap, particularly in the case of Mikey Doble, who's got himself up ahead of Sam Osborne on the previous lap. You've got Josh Cook in close proximity too. So that's the battle for 6th position, all chasing after Ash Sutton as they go down the Bentley Straight for the 6th lap of 12. So we're just approaching half distance. Mikey Doble has a look up the inside of Sutton, but that's also a defensive move because Sam Osborne is fighting back round the outside at the left-hander at Brundle. Then they will turn right at Nelson, and when they re-emerge, we'll see if Michael Doble's been able to find a way through. He hasn't. There's been a touch, hasn't there? And Doble's been across the grass. Big moment. And that has just given a bit of daylight between between Ash Sutton and cars behind.
Certainly has. And Mikey Doble, did he actually lose any places? Let's have a look down towards Murray's. No, he didn't. So Sam Osborne lost one to Josh Cook, but Mikey Doble actually did hang on fairly well there. Smiley now on the boost. He's going to try and go around the outside of Tom Chilton in towards Richie's corner. It's going to be a drag race again between those two. Smiley on the outside. He tries to do the cutback on the run towards Wilson Hairpin, but it's going to be Tom Chilton who holds on for the time being. But then Smiley jinks out to the inside line in towards the hairpin, and on the exit of the corner, has Smiley managed to get the job done? No, not quite. So it's Virtue that hangs on ahead of Restart.
Yeah, this is a great race, and isn't it, up front? And with these tyre strategies, it really allowed different drivers who perhaps didn't have the chance to win race 1 to have a go at race 2, and then race 3 we'll have a totally different story to look forward to. But for now, we enjoy this battle up front where Adam Morgan is catching the top 2. So Adam Morgan there in 3rd position. He was on the podium last time out at Brands Hatch, and looking for another victory is Adam Morgan. He's had 11 wins in his career. Meanwhile, plenty of battles going on further back as Stephen Jelly is looking to gain places after his disappointment in race 1. If anything on this lap, Rowbottom with a slightly larger gap to Lloyd, but as you were mentioning earlier, Matt, and still the situation for Adam Morgan there in 3rd position, he's got a lot more laps of boost left, and we know that gives you something in the region of 5 miles per hour when you're using it. It
does indeed, yeah. So 2 more laps for Adam Morgan over Dan Lloyd, 3 more laps than Dan Rowbottom. So if he can just bide his time here and be in the right place towards the end of this 12-lap race, then he could have something up his sleeve by the time they get to the checkered flag. Just to have a little look at Jake Hill as well, from 21st on the grid, the number 1 machine is now up into 12th place. So he's in that reversal of the top 12. Of course, the higher you go, the more chance you have of being reversed. But 12th place is Jake Hill at the minute, and he's only a quarter of a second behind Aaron Taylor-Smith. So more progress to be made for Jake as he turns his way now right behind Aaron Taylor-Smith in towards the final corner. Murray's gives a little bit of bump to the Irishman as well. And let's see now if the gold-plated number 1 machine can get the acceleration up towards the first corner. And we've had the change for the lead because Dan Lloyd has now gone through. He's a bit sideways on the exit of the corner. We caught that at the very last minute, but Dan Lloyd has made a great move down the inside line at the first corner. He now cements it through in towards the Wilson hairpin, and Dan Rowbottom, I think just like us, didn't really see that one coming.
And I think that all came from using the boost, Matt. Dan Lloyd was 7 miles per hour quicker as he crossed the line, so he caught Rowbottom out of the final corner, used the boost and accelerated past by the time they got towards Ritchie's. But now Rowbottom fighting back. He's alongside, he's on the outside line as they go down towards the Agostini hairpin. The inside line though for Lloyd is defensive, and it's good enough to keep him ahead of Dan Rowbottom through the corner. Rowbottom will fight back out of the corner though down towards Hamilton. Is he alongside? He is alongside, and Dan Rowbottom will sneak back into the lead of the race.
Yeah, just wondering if Rowbottom's now using his boost to try and get this position back, but if he does, it does still mean that Dan Lloyd has 1 more lap advantage over Rowbottom in the boost terms, and Adam Morgan behind in 3rd place will be rubbing his hand with glee here, just going, you carry on fighting guys, I'm just waiting with bated breath to see what unfolds. And Adam Morgan's teammate behind, Tom Chilton, is sitting there quite pretty in 4th place as well. So it's a quartet for the lead as they head under the bridge now for the 8th time of asking, and Chris Smiley, who's now into his 200th race start within the British Touring Car Championship, is also starting to catch in 5th place as well. I think they've just about dropped Ash Sutton in 6th place, and Ash has got Michael Doble about 0.3 of a second behind.
I think that might have changed, Matt, during this lap. I think both Doble and Cook have got the better of Ash Sutton, so that continues behind. It's hard to know what battle to watch, isn't it?
Sorry, Michael Doble was very wide through Coram. He just managed to keep it on the tarmac there, but you're absolutely right. Doble and Cook are through.
And for Adam Morgan, he can use the boost, I believe, on every single lap of the remainder of the race. That isn't the case for Rowbottom and Lloyd. They've both just got 1 lap left. There's 4 laps of the race left, and Adam Morgan can use the boost on each of those laps. So he's absolutely still in the hunt for the race victory here. Meanwhile, behind them, Chris Smiley right on terms with Tom Chilton. He's looking to the outside as they go down towards the Wilson hairpin. But if they continue to battle, Matt, that'll allow the top 3 to pull further away.
It certainly will, yep. And just to say that Sam Osborne has got past his teammate Ash Sutton as well on the end of that previous lap. So he now goes to 8th, Sutton to 9th. So he's kind of falling closer to dropping outside the top 10 and potentially outside the top 12 as well. Next on the list for Sutton Sutton, who might catch him, is Charles Rainford, but Charles is almost a couple of seconds adrift at the start of lap number 9. Black and white flag now being shown to car number 32, so the race leader Dan Rowbottom definitely pushing to hang on here from Dan Lloyd, but too many more of those could result in a penalty, so he has to be careful and has to watch his P's and Q's as we head now with 3 laps to go.
There's a potential here that Ash Sutton, who led the race at one stage, might come under pressure from Jake Hill, who almost started at the very back of the grid. So it really is a topsy-turvy race, particularly if you were on hard tyres and had to start from the front of the grid. Meanwhile, for second place, Adam Morgan using one of those boost laps to challenge Dan Lloyd. He's looking to the outside as they go through the left-hander at Brundle, but Lloyd's been able to fend that off, and because he is having to start to defend, Dan Rowbottom is able to put a bit of daylight for the first time between himself and the car in second.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest gap we've seen so far, isn't it, within this race between the top 2 we currently have. So, yeah, Lloyd now just starting to struggle as he tries to keep at bay Adam Morgan, but also tries to think about keeping on the tail of Dan Rowbottom up the road. So, a very intriguing battle now as they do come through to complete lap number 9. Chilton still sits there in 4th place with 5th place Chris Smiley behind. Then we've got Doble as up ahead on the road. It's going to be Morgan now that makes the move, so this is going to be the advantage for Adam Morgan to go through, and as you said, Josh, with more boost laps left, it's Morgan who has the advantage now. He's up into second place. He's got a gap of 0.8 of a second. Next target, and possibly for a race win, is going to be Robo.
Yeah, absolutely right, and Rowbottom will be trying to save his final lap of boost for the very last lap of the race, because otherwise there is an opportunity. We'll have a drag race to the line, isn't there? If the leader can't use the boost, second place can. We will see what we just saw there for second place, a real drag to the line, and that'll be thoroughly exciting if it comes to that. But first, Adam Morgan has to hunt down Dan Rowbottom, but he's got those 2 extra laps of boost to be able to work at that. Meanwhile, further back, Charles Rainford in 10th position has caught Ash Sutton for 9th. Then you've got Jake Hill in a big old battle for a 12th position, being headed by Aaron Taylor-Smith. But the lead gap, that started at 0.8 of a second at the beginning of the lap. It was pretty even through sector 1 between Dan Rowbottom and between Adam Morgan. So this really the remainder of the lap, though, that's when the boost comes into effect. You can use it out of Williams, you use it out of Murray's as well. And Dan Lloyd, he's using his final lap of boost right now to go with Adam Morgan, trying to catch Dan Rowbottom.
Certainly is, yep. So that is the battle we have towards the front of the field. I'm very intrigued about this tyre situation, because Ash Sutton's last lap time, a 1:58.4, where there's Charles Rainford behind, a 1:56.6, so almost 2 seconds a lap quicker as Charles Rainford. The other one we haven't really spoken about, after starting on pole position, Dan Camish is down in 20th place. So it just shows that soft tyres work very well. Hard tyres, when you're up against all the other soft runners, it means you just languish down at the rear of the field. So again, after a great race 1, it's going to be a very poor race 2, but this is exactly what the tyre disparity does this year within the British Touring Car Championship. So we'll keep an eye on that for race 3. It's going to make it ever more intriguing as we head through with the reversal of somewhere between 6 and 12 as well. But for now, out front, Dan Rowbottom continues to lead, but that last time through, Adam Morgan was 0.3 of a second quicker, which now brings the gap down to almost half a second.
And Dan Rowbottom, I think, Matt, will be doing everything he can to not use the boost on this lap, so he has it to save for the very final lap of the race. But can Adam Morgan, using the boost on this lap, be able to challenge? That is a possibility. So for Dan Rowbottom and for Adam Morgan, heading down towards the Agostini hairpin, they've put a bit of daylight between themselves and Dan Lloyd, who has no more boost to use. Like is the case for Rowbottom, it's 1 left for Chilton and Smiley. So it is Adam Morgan in that terms who's got the advantage, and he's trying ever so hard to get on terms with Dan Rowbottom. The challenge could come at Ritchie's, I think, to start the final lap.
Certainly could, yeah. So we'll keep an eye on boost and what the gap is out of the final corner from Murray's. But as you said, the boost for Dan Rowbottom will potentially be saved till the end of this race, just to have something left in the tank, whereas Morgan now should be on it, and he is, as he works his way down the back straight. And so is Dan Rowbottom, so he's using his final lap of boost on this lap, so he's not going to have anything for the final lap, which we're very shortly to start within this second race of the weekend. Just looking further back, Jake Hill has just gone and done his best lap of the race there, 156.546 on lap number 10 of the race. So still potential for Jake to get 2 more places before we see the end of the race. There goes Charles Rainford on replay past Sutton down towards Oggies.
And there was a change down the back straight, Matt, because Tom Chilton has found his way past Dan Lloyd. So Dan Lloyd, who at one stage looked like he could have been a race winner, instead he's dropped off the podium as Tom Chilton uses as much curb as he dared through Murray's, but has that halted his momentum out of the corner and given Dan Lloyd an opportunity to fight back? Not sure. The lead gap still 0.6 of a second heading on to the final lap. No boost for Rowbottom. Adam Morgan can use his boost. They're going to be right together at the end, I think, Matt.
Yeah, the rectangle on the side of Rowbottom has gone red, and he runs slightly wide through the exit of Ritchie's as well. So Adam Morgan, 15 seconds of boost to use on this lap. He can use it through the exit of the corner, he can use it down the straight, but wherever he uses it, he wants to make sure he uses it to try and get the lead of the race away from Dan Rowbottom, who ever since kind of Dan Lloyd dropped away and he got past Ash Sutton, he has been the leader of this one. But can he hold on now for just under 3 miles as Morgan continues to close the gap down towards Agostini? I think it will between these two, because 3rd, 4th and 5th are continuing to fight. Chilton ahead of Lloyd, and Smiley, as we said on his 200th race start, is looking to try and get a podium, but I think he's just going to miss out.
Could well be. Looking at this gap between the top two, Adam Morgan caught a 10th up through sector 1, but we know the big gains are firstly down the Bentley Straight, but then more so out of Murray's, race to the line. Last time when Adam Morgan was able to do that against Dan Lloyd, he was 0.04 of a second behind at the finish line, so he wants to be that bit closer to Dan Rowbottom as they head out of the final corner. Morgan using the boost to get closer and closer. He's caught another 10th of a second. He's right there now, Matt, with those last few corners of the race to go. Yeah,
I think you're right. It could be the drag to the line if he gets a good exit through Murray's and he gets that toe and also the use of the boost. Depends how much he has left within this race. It's going to be a dead heat, I'm sure, towards the end of this one. Both Rowbottom and Morgan have never won here at Snetterton. Rowbottom looking for his 5th career win and Adam Morgan looking for his 12th. There's just going to be one more corner to go. Rowbottom slightly wide into it, so it's now going to be the drag to the checker flag for what's going to be round 8 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, and it will be won, lights are flashing, by Dan Rowbottom, who takes his first win of the 2025 season, his first win here at Snetterton, and he does it by 0.3 of a second. So a cracking little fight there between Rowbottom and Morgan, and of course it was joined throughout that race by Chilton, Lloyd and Smiley, who complete the top 5. Mikey Doble then comes through next in 6th position, so he's going to be the first who potentially could be on pole position for the 3rd and final race of the weekend. Josh Cook will also be in that reversal with a possibility, along with a great drive from Sam Osborne in 8th. 9th place goes to the first of our BMWs, which is Charles Rainford, and 10th place to the first of our hard-tired car, which is Ash Sutton. So considering he was on the hard up against all the softs, he did really well to keep himself in the top 10 by the time they got to the checker flag. 11th place goes to Jake Hill, impressive drive from 21st on the grid, and Aaron Taylor-Smith, Ronan Pearson, James Dorlin and Darryl De Leon complete the points in 15th place. And on the big screens you can see how happy Napa Racing are, and also how happy Team Virtue are with that drive there from Adam Morgan. So hugs all around, and a well-deserved win, I think it's fair to say there, Josh, for Dan Rowbottom, who has lost me. He's gone. He's headed out. There's going to be a bit of a change for podiums and grid walk. So Josh has left us, but what a great race that was for Dan Rowbottom, who takes the victory by 0.3 of a second. It's Ford Focus ahead of Hyundai, who complete the podium. And again, a great result there for Tom Chilton, which gives him his 2nd podium of the season. So cracking result. Dan Lloyd comes through in 4th. Brilliant 4th and 5th for Restart Racing. Best performance for them so far this year. We had Chris Smiley with 4th place and the 5th place at Brands Hatch. But in terms of the team result, that is definitely one of the best performances of the season overall together. So they come through next up, as I said, in what's going to be 4th and 5th. Mikey Doble is then in 6th. He is the 3rd of our independents home, because it was Chris Smiley in 2nd place and Dan Lloyd as our independent winner for the 2nd time today. So all of a sudden he's starting to creep himself back into the Independents Championship as well. Behind the top 6 we have Josh Cook and Sam Osborne. Osborne, and then Charles Rainford and Ash Sutton, with the final two with a potential chance of being reversed on the grid for race 3 is going to be Jake Hill and Aaron Taylor-Smith. And of course, that'll all happen down on the podium at the end of the presentations we have for this second race. I'm just wondering if there was possibly an issue with Chris Smiley's boost within that race, because it does say on our screen he still had 8 laps of boost left, so that would have been the full complement. So I'm just wondering if there was an issue with Chris Smiley's boost during that race. If there was, then he did a tremendous job to keep himself up there in what was 5th place. So very interesting. But yeah, Chris Smiley, if he did that on his own accord, what could have been if he would have had the 8 laps of boost to use as well. But for now, Dan Rowbottom does the obligatory running wide round the circuit just to pick up all of that rubber, making sure that the ride height of the car is as good as it can be. Make sure it passes the TOCA technical inspection once they head into the pit lane. But Dan Rowbottom very happy as he acknowledges the crowd here at Snetterton, works his way into the pit lane, and it's going to be Napa Racing. 2 wins so far today, with Dan Camish picking up the victory in race number 1 and Dan Rowbottom picking up the victory here in race number 2. And what could have been for Dan Camish, but as we said, it just shows, doesn't it? Once you have that hard tyre on the car, it really does drop you down the order. So from highs to lows for Dan Camish, but again, he'll be back onto that soft tyre like most people for race number 3. So it's not going to be an easy task for Dan Camish, but we'll see what he can pull out of the bag from the 10th row of the grid down there in 20th position for the Napa Racing team. But yeah, good drives all round there. Sam Osborne was an impressive drive up into 8th position. I think the BMWs have kind of made good of a bad situation so far this weekend, with Charles Rainford, Jake Hill and also Darryl DeLeon all finishing within the points for that second race. Aidan Moffat just missed out. He was there in 16th position. Gordon Shedden, with the damage after race number 1, managed to get home in 17th place. Stephen Jelly, who was a non-finisher in race number 1 as well, came through in 18th. And then Ryan Bensley, on his debut weekend within the BTCC, came through in 19th place, and hopefully if we speak to him at some point before now and the end of the weekend, he was able to make some moves on some of the cars around him on that occasion. So he came home just ahead of Dan Camish, and then Dexter Patterson and Max Hall were next up, with Nick Hamilton and Nick Halstead completing the finishes, with Tom Ingram being the only one that didn't make it to the checker flag. So real disappointment for him after that heavy impact with the Armco barrier through Richie's corner. So he is the man who did not finish, but Dan Rowbottom is going to be a very happy man, Alan.
He certainly is. He brings the car up towards the number 1 board down in Parc Ferme, and Louise Goodman is here for ITV. I have to say, Steve Ryder is not. He's watching the final few moments of Charlton's final at Wembley, and Dan Rowbottom is out of the car and goes over to get congratulated by Steve from Napa Racing and the rest of the team as well. And as Dan makes his way right the way down the line of Napa Racing team, he's still got his helmet on. I don't know if you could hear that patting noise in the background. That was a pat on the back of the helmet from the team. Everybody congratulating Dan Rowbottom, and I think I'll probably...
You want me?
Yeah, well, yes, we all want you, Dan.
Yeah, okay.
Off your helmet can come, and then we'll talk to you. And I'm okay. Very good. So that answers the question. ITV are in a break, which is why Steve Ryder's able to watch the final few moments of the Charlton game. Dan Rowbottom, a winner once again in the BTCC. Well done, smile!
I am. It's taken long enough, so we'll get through all the nasties first, make sure there's no penalties. But yeah, it's great. Good race.
Don't even think like that. You drove a great race.
Yeah, it was good. It was hard. The last few laps, Lloyd and Adam were pushing me hard. They had a little bit more hybrid. Yeah, the team put a great car together. All weekend it's been fantastic, so great job.
And I tell you what, you've been building up to this year. It's a different Dan Rowbottom.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's nice to win races, but ultimately we want to be in at the hunt at the end. And to be honest, I'd be quite proud if we did that without any race wins, but a race win certainly feels better, doesn't it? So, great day so far.
You'll get that moment on the top step of the podium of which there is nothing like it.
Exactly.
Top man, Dan. Thank you very much indeed.